Yes, sir.
Would a concussion be considered like
A brain injury?
yeah, like a brain injury, but like
We
below
call
30?
Yeah, we call those kind of brain bruises, because what happens is that you have a little space in your head on the inside of your skull, and then you have your brain. Well, sometimes you impact that head so much that your brain will actually move and then move back, and it can happen in car accidents too. It's called coup contra coup. But it was just, and it's a brain bruise is what it is. And can it make you altered mental status?
Like affect your heart rate? Was so like below 30?
Not so much, but it can affect your process of thinking. Okay.
And it's not just car accidents, it's football players, it's bikes supposed, Bradley did it in 5th grade, crashed on his bike, knocked himself out, doesn't remember in 3 hours.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it can be a skateboarder, and if you don't have a helmet on, a helmet is what saved his life.
Literally,
I
the
can
helmet
vouch for
saved
that.
his life. So, and they don't ride anything without helmets on.
In our house, helmets were not an option, just like seatbelts were not an option.
Okay, Mom.
Okay? Because I see all kinds of kids with no helmets on all kinds of stuff, so.
What's the worst you've seen? Or vocabulary?
The worst I've seen, I don't want to freak her out, so.
No, it doesn't matter.
I would say the hardest thing is kids.
And that's probably why Amy has never pursued being a paramedic, because there's a lot of responsibility that comes with being a paramedic. And she doesn't like, being a mom, she doesn't like seeing children hurt, and babies especially, because there's some accidents, but most of it is caused by other people when it comes to baby deaths.
A couple years ago, probably about 5 years ago, within 14 months, I went on 8 bad baby calls. 7 of them died. 1 was traumatically injured, and 6 of those 7 were all abuse of some sort. That's a problem. I mean, if they have a congenital health issue and they die, that's a different situation. But when it's done at the hands of somebody else, that I have a big problem with. That would be the hardest part of my job. Or of all of our jobs.
Me in retrospect, I would think the best thing that I've ever seen is birthing a child. It's just an amazing process. It's bloody, it's gory, it's not a pretty sight, but just knowing the whole process that the mother went through of carrying that child and the development of that child, and then having a brand new life in your hands, just screaming and crying, and you know that you delivered it. That's just an awesome feeling. The worst thing that I've ever seen,
I'd say my worst would be the guardrail lady,
oh yeah, I would have been trapped.
but she'll freak out. So I can't.
No, go ahead.
I went on an accident. Actually, I don't know if any of you know Bradley's younger brother. He's a sophomore. So yeah, so 16, 17 years ago, went on an accident on I-40. 2 sisters were in the car. One sister was fine. Her legs were trapped because the dash kind of crashed around her. The other lady, the guardrail went through her. So that would probably be one of the, I mean, she obviously died instantly, but it'd be one of the weirdest things that I've had. And that one obviously definitely sticks out. And it took us 3 hours to get the sister out of the car, and she had no idea that the other one was dead, because thank God it was the middle of the night.
How did you take care of the pole through her?
Department of Transportation came and cut the guardrail.
She was gone, so there was no saving her.
There was nothing we could do
So
for her.
basically, it's just a recovery after that. Sometimes we have to do that. We just recover bodies when they're entrapped or burnt or whatever the case may be. I think the worst one that I went on, just because of the people that was associated with it, was out on Sarah Park side. A motorcyclist had fell down in the middle of the road. He got a flat and he laid his bike down, and his bike slid off the road, and he wound up in the middle of the road. But most bikers, what color shirts do they wear?
Black.
Black. And he had some jeans on and stuff, and it was right as the sun was going down, and we had cars traveling. Well, he was hurt. He was trying to get up out of the middle of the road, and another car came, and they felt that they hit something, but they was unsure. So the wife told the husband, I think you just, he says, what did I hit? And she says, I think you just hit a man. And as he was getting up, the bumper of the car kind of hit his head. So he was instantly dead. But the thing is that the person that hit him, I knew very, very well. And he became a patient just because because of the traumatic situation that it had put him in. But I had both his wife and him as patients then because they were just totally distraught, and that will do that. Emotional pain can be just as bad or not worse as physical pain.
And, you know, we've lived here a long time. I've lived here since 4th grade. So obviously I grew up
That's
here.
a long time.
It is. And because I'm so involved with Bradley and Darren's activities ever since elementary school, I know a lot of the kids and everything. And it's hard to go on somebody you know, or whether it be a kid or an adult, but to them it's very comforting because they feel a sense of like a connection that, oh, you're here to help me, and oh, you know, you'll watch out for me. And of course, you know, we treat them like we would anybody, whether we knew them or not. But that is something you have to deal with. Is if it's somebody you know, you still have to do what you have to do, and you know, you kind of file it back here and deal with it later, kind of thing.
I worked in the emergency room for about 5 years too, so I was not only through 911 when I would see people, I seen a lot of different types of injuries and illnesses through the hospital. I worked on this one guy who had wrecked his motorcycle for about who?
I wrote it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you did, didn't you? I must have worked on him for about an hour and a half, cleaning him up, splinting him. He had multiple fractures, multiple abrasions, multiple lacerations, contusions. I worked on him for about an hour and a half, and then I finally looked him in the eyes and realized that I knew him. So it's just because you get so focused in on what you're doing, they just kind of, that personality becomes kind of just on
Not
the
that you
back
don't look
burner.
at their face or
It's
their,
not that-
you know, it just, you do what you have to do to help them. You just kind of get, it's automatic, I guess.
How do you deal with the emotional aspect of your job? How do you
We have
remain professional and then?
In the bad calls, we have a debriefing that we can do when all the people that's involved in that particular call can get together within each entity of the city's ambulance, fire, police. They have counselors and stuff that we sit down and we talk about it, and everybody gets their own version. And you may learn something from somebody else on how to deal with it in your way.
And nothing ever leaves that room, so you can cry, you can throw, you can yell, you can be mad, you can just sit there.
It's just like a debriefing
It's
is what it
just-
is.
yeah.
So. And
And nothing leaves the room.
even if you don't think that you can go and benefit anything out of it, I always encourage everybody to go because you may have something that you could share that's going to help somebody else. So it can be very trying at times, especially with people like close within the public service that we work with when they get hurt. Everyone comes forward and wants to try to help.
Like a big family.
Yeah,
It is one
it's
big
like another
family.
family.
Well, you know, we live, sleep, eat together all the time. So.
Yeah, because we work 24-hour shifts, so it's like another family, you know. So do you guys have any other questions?
Anybody out have a question?
Chase?
Whenever you're doing CPR, if you crack a rib,
It's going to happen.
could it ever like puncture the skin?
Not the skin because
Lung.
probably a lung or something like that, but cracking ribs it's just going to happen, especially as the patients get older. Their bones aren't as strong through osteoporosis or something like that, or just brittle bones. You're going to break ribs. Okay, I suggest that if you ever do CPR, in fact, I will cover it. If you're going to do CPR, just don't go up there and start going as deep as you can to begin with. Just the max depth you want is 2 inches. Okay, so you might want to go an inch to begin with. If an inch compresses the chest and you start hearing bones breaking, are you going to go 2 inches? No. Okay, so you might just kind of judge it. Standardized depth is 2 inches. Okay.
And you need to pace yourself because you've got 100 compressions to do. That's what I was telling these guys when I was over with their group. Don't go, you know, gung-ho at first and then you're like really going slow. You have to have a nice, steady rhythm, just like your heart beats.
And the best way that I found, if you 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, if you say and, it kind of gives you enough break to let that chest recoil, fill full of blood, and then you push it back through with your compressions. I use probably about 5 different cardiac drugs during cardiac arrest to help them get back into a regular rhythm.
Any other questions?
Adrenaline, epinephrine is one of the biggest ones we use.
Bicarb.
Bicarb is because your body builds up lactic acids when it becomes in a sound state, like it's not pumping fluids through your body like you're supposed to through your lymph nodes and everything else. Lactic acid builds up, and we use sodium bicarb. It because the acids build up and your muscles don't work the way they should.
I was gonna ask you any other cool stories.
Oh, oh, we can stand here all day and tell you
Yeah, I'm
stories.
sure they can stand there all day. Do you have a
Crazy.
impalement, another impalement besides
Yes.
that someone lived?
So, yes.
And explain to them what they have to do. They have to cut and bring it, that you're not supposed
No,
to.
we don't cut it, we leave it. I
Well,
had a guy-
Yeah, no, you don't
she's
pull it
saying-
out.
She's saying if it's a
Oh, if
20-foot
it's
length.
big,
of-
oh.
They cut it
Oh,
and then
okay.
they bring them to,
And we have to
But
stabilize.
Have you
skin
seen something
impalements-
like that?
Skin impalements and stuff like that, we don't remove them, because if we remove them, it could be in an artery and it may be stopping the blood from flowing at that time. And now we remove it, guess what? It's an open artery. And it don't bleed out. So we leave it in place, but what we do, we pad around the impalement and we're very careful with it, not to disturb it.
I had a guy a long time ago, they were drunk, which is really stupid, and they were shooting bow and arrows at each other. And this guy got an arrow in his ear, and we had to stabilize, we laid him on his side, and we stabilized that arrow, and we brought him into the ear with an arrow sticking out. He was very lucky. But
I got a call out to the shooting range out at Sarah Park. Everyone knows where that's at. There's a gun range out there. And this guy was lying on the ground with a 4x4 pad over his eye, with a non-rebreather oxygen mask on his mask, talking to us. And when I arrived on scene, it was told to me that his gun had exploded. He was on the table, looking down the sight of a gun, and it exploded in his face. Well, I knew that he had an eye injury, so we bandaged him all up, started IV, gave him pain meds, loaded him up on the helicopter, and as the helicopter took off, I went back to the other EMS guys that were on scene, and I said, "Do you guys have any demographics on that guy?" And they said, "Ron, that was Matt." Now, Matt is a very good friend of mine that I did not know. That's why just focus in on what you're doing at the job at hand. And what had happened to him, the bolt of the gun, which is about 4 to 5 inches, had went in his eye, hit the back of his sinus cavity, and wound up down here in his neck.
Oh, he's so lucky.
And he lived.
He's so lucky.
They said a couple millimeters more would have severed his carotid artery and he would have bled out. Now he has an artificial eye. Too bad he's not here. He'd pull it out for you.
yes, he takes it out. Suck it regularly.
I grew up with a kid like that.
But sometimes when we're on calls, you just concentrate at the task at hand and do whatever you need to do to help that person. Amy's been an EMT for a long time, much longer than I've been a paramedic. But this is my second career in life, like your teacher's on her second career. I went from fixing machines. I was a tool maker, die maker. So I went from fixing machines to fixing machines, really, because the human body's just one big working machine. And if something goes wrong, it affects other parts of the machine, so you have to fix that original part for it to work. Don't open that up.
I'm not, I did it quick.
So this is my second career in life, too, so I'm getting ready to retire, though.
And this is the only thing I've ever done, and like I was telling these guys that was in Bradley's group, it's like a second language in our house, medical talk, and that's why we were telling him don't answer anything, because he knows the answers, because it's just a part of life in our house.
But once again, we don't come home and tell him the boys every call that we've been on either, because it's just none of their business.
Certain ones
leave
that
work
will
at
be
work.
a learning tool for them, you know, like, hey, I just went on this kid that was texting, and it was like a no or a yeah, and he crashed in the back of a truck. Well, it was right when Bradley was getting his license. Well, let me tell you, Bradley got an earful when I got home that day.
So
You know?
Bradley don't text, do you?
So,
Any more questions for those guys? Let's have a round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you.